UFC 278 is now in the books, and it was pretty okay as an event. I've heard people discussing the impact of it being held at altitude, and to be honest, the fatigue that set in during a number of the card's matchups was certainly there. But Paulo Costa versus Luke Rockhold was a hell of a lot of fun, and the main event pairing of Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards, well, that was just about as crazy as it gets. Out of all of the dark horse contenders in this sport, the guys who have been hanging around the top of the division with little hype behind them, I've always maintained that Leon Edwards was right up there, probably the most underrated of the lot. Not that he was showing himself to be a perfect fighter or anything. It's not like I gave him a great chance at beating the fearsome Kamaru Usman, but Leon had certainly shown himself to be legit, and I did predict that the fight would be competitive, even if Usman looked primed to win potentially even every round. And apart from that strong showing from Leon in the opening 5 minutes, it did appear as though Usman was warming into the contest, building off of his first win over Edwards by mixing in his newfound aggression and confidence on the feet, but also going to work with an approach that was more of the classic Usman, as opposed to the more striking heavy side of himself that he was forced to show against the likes of Colby, Burns, and even Masvidal. Kamaru looked just as good as his billing, using his superior cardio to gradually build the pressure on Edwards. And though Joe Rogan and DC have been catching quite a lot of criticism because of the timing of them saying in that 5th round that Edwards was broken and merely fighting for a moral victory, I honestly did kind of get the same vibe. Hell, I think the majority of people weren't liking what they were seeing from Edwards in terms of his body language and, above all other things, urgency going into that final 5. And yet here we are. Usman was up 3 rounds pretty clearly and headed right for a 4th round that would bring the final tally to a likely 49-46. But Leon had one more trick up his sleeve. He was in there fighting the pound for pound number 1 in his first ever shot at UFC Gold, a shot that came after much delay, the no contest, the Hamzat bookings that just never materialized. Even the biggest win in terms of name value on his resume, Nate Diaz, pretty much stole the spotlight after having one amazing minute on the back of 24 bad ones. But despite having a reputation for not really ending his fights strongly, Leon Edwards was about to subvert all of our expectations, basically doing to Usman what Diaz did to him, except with a far more definitive result. I don't think he actually attempted another head kick all fight. I may well be wrong on that, but there certainly weren't any majorly noteworthy moments in the striking exchanges that involved the fight-ending technique, but he set Kamaru up like he had planned it from the start. And just as the commentators were discussing Leon's need to really step things up, he faked the punch, caused Usman to lean out, and then nailed him with the most dramatic head kick knockout you're ever likely to see. And Usman went straight down, no follow-up needed, and as he lay there pretty much unconscious but with his eyes wide open, Leon wheeled away and had his hand raised before any of us realized what was actually going on. And I am still a bit rattled by it all. On a quick side note, if you're enjoying this content, be sure to let us know in the comment section below. As well as that, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that like button if the mood strikes. Anyway, back to the video. That for me was the most incredible comeback I've ever seen in mixed martial arts. The fringe contenders to that position that people often point to are a few Darren Elkins performances, Tim Boetsch versus Yushin Okami, even Scott Smith versus Pete Sell. You could even throw Henry Cejudo versus Marlon Moraes if you want to focus in on the stakes. But the number 1 competitor, of course, was Anderson Silva's 5th round triangle choke of Chael Sonnen at UFC 117. Like Edwards, Anderson was losing that fight pretty definitively. The difference, though, was that we all knew that Silva could find the finish on Chael. There was an expectation that the guy who was champion, this legendary finisher, was always dangerous, was always able to use the creativity that we all knew he had, and it was shocking to behold, don't get me wrong. But Leon Edwards hasn't knocked someone out in 4 years. He's a technical wizard, yes, but his technique wasn't working up until that point. We had no reason to believe that this was anything more than a run-of-the-mill defense for the champion once the fight had moved into its second half, and Leon was the title contender, not the favorite and the champion coming in. Silva versus Sonnen 1 is one of the all-time great MMA fights, a spectacle that just summed up everything we had already suspected about Silva. But Leon Edwards pulled this upset out of nowhere, and he didn't just catch a lucky shot in a reckless exchange, he set Usman up, using the fact that Kamaru had stepped off of his pressure to at least some extent against him. Edwards didn't have the wrestling, he didn't have the grappling, and he didn't really have the cardio to get the better of Kamaru, but with his back to the wall and the clock working against him, he leaned into his technical striking skills, in many ways utilizing the one perfect shot in his arsenal that was his best chance at KOing the man who stood in front of him. It was the Hail Mary shot that was available to him, and the fact that he took it in that fashion, yeah, it's a real mind blower. That That is a comeback for the ages, a head kick for the ages, and a win that really gives Leon's chosen nickname of Rocky some weight. So congratulations to Leon Edwards, he found something within himself that 99% of fighters would have failed at. He was patient where needed and didn't break despite the clear gulf in skill, biding his time before unleashing just one shot that would change the face of the fight game and his own life forever. Obviously Usman probably needs a bit of time off, but if you ever wanted to bring a UFC title fight to the UK, setting up this trilogy fight is a no-brainer. For Kamaru, it's a tough pill to swallow. He was so close to Anderson Silva's consecutive wins record, and really just another few victories away from pushing into the GOAT conversation. But that in many ways is the difficulty of breaking through that wall. So yeah, let's not give Jorge Masvidal a title shot on the back of some unresolved beef and a quote he made about 3 years ago. I do like Jorge, but he needs to start winning fights. Things this year were already getting quite interesting at 170 pounds, with the fresh new contenders that are moving in. And well, after this, I do suspect that the landscape of the division is going to change quite drastically over the next year or so. And I guess above all other things, it's time to see just how good Leon Edwards can be. But what did you make of UFC 278 overall? And describe to us your reaction to seeing Leon Edwards as he did the unthinkable in the dying embers of his title fight against the great Kamaru Usman. Do let us know your opinions in the comment section below, and if you want to like the video and subscribe to the channel, that would be awesome. Thank you for watching.